And Mayor, we are live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 24th, 2022 City Council joint meeting with state legislators. This joint meeting of the Longmont City Council and our state legislators is now in session. The meeting's being live streamed. For information about where to view the live stream, please go to www.longmontcolorado.gov/agendas. There will be only one opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting, and instructions for calling in will be displayed on screen when it is time for public comment. You can see the screen up now, and the number that you need to call in is 888-788-0099. Please enter the meeting ID 828-7983-9401 and press the pound sign. Please mute the sound on your computer when you call in. I would like now to invite Sandy Cedar, our Assistant City Manager, to introduce the legislators and get the meeting started.
Thank you so much, Mayor Peck. My name is Sandy Cedar. I'm the Assistant City Manager and also the city's legislative affairs person. So I'm the lobbyist for the City Council and help to connect our legislators with our City Council members. So I'd love to introduce our representatives tonight. We have Representative Burnett as well as Representative McCormick. I was not able to confirm with Senator Jaquez Lewis, but if she's able to join, hopefully she can jump in at some point as we go. So what I'd like to start with, though, is I would love to hear a little bit about the legislative initiatives that Representative Burnett and Representative McCormick are running this session. So if it works for you all, we'll start with Representative McCormick.
Oh, great. You caught me off guard. I thought you were going alphabetical. No, that's good.
I was going to let Representative Burnett finish her dinner. She was still eating.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Well, thank you, Sandy, and thank you, Mayor Peck, and all our wonderful council members. It's great to sort of see you. So people that are listening understand like which area I cover. The House District 11 is my House district, and it's a large part of Longmont, not all of it. And then it heads west to Lyons, Allens Park, and also picks up Niwot. And that's how it will be for the rest of this year until redistricting gets put into play in 2023. So that's my House district. And a lot of things, it seems like the legislative session kind of gets off to a slow start as the hundreds of bills that everyone has been working on throughout the summer and fall start to get into the system. It takes a while for them to be introduced, assigned to committee, start to be heard in committee. So it seems like the train is just starting to chug along and get up to speed. But meanwhile, we have spent last week and this week in our SMART hearing acts, which are the hearings where we have accountability reports from the different departments in our state government report to the various committees of reference that relate to their area. So last week, we had a very long day in the Agriculture, Livestock, and Water Committee, listening to the reports from the Department of Agriculture here in the state, as well as the Department of Natural Resources. And it was a very informative meeting, even though it was long. It was really great to hear of all the great work that they're doing at the state and the implementation of many of the bills that we passed last session with some of the stimulus money that was put to really good use through those departments. So that's kind of what's happening right now. I don't know how much time I have. I can touch on some of the bills that I failed to ask you that, Sandy, at the beginning. How much time do you want me to go? Because
I would say, how about maybe 5 minutes with kind of your major initiatives?
Yes, great.
We'll go to Representative Burnett. We'll have council.
Sounds good. So some of the things that I'm working on, I was on a water resources review committee this summer, And out of that committee is a bill I'm not carrying it per se, but it was part of our committee initiative to help the Republican River Valley and the San Luis Valley areas of our state with water compact compliance and to help aquifer restoration in the southwest part of our state. Really, really important measure. So be on the lookout for that to come down the line. I'm working on a bill to help occupational therapists, physical therapists, and speech therapists who have used equine assisted therapy, yes, that's horses, for 40 years or more with their clients to further their therapy sessions and their health outcomes. But we are one of only 13 states that does not give Medicaid reimbursement for these professionals for that particular type of therapy. And I'm running a bill to correct that because it's super beneficial and actually could potentially save the state money because patients that use equine assisted therapy often need fewer sessions. So that's kind of a fun bill. I'm also running every 10 years or so, every profession in our state goes through a sunset review. It has to kind of get reauthorized, whether you're a physician or your local hairdresser, whatever profession that you are in, regulated by the Department of Regulatory Affairs, needs to go through a review. Well, it just so happens that this year is the year for the Veterinary Practice Act, and it just so happens that it's starting in the House, and I just so happen to be the only veterinarian down there. So that's really exciting that I am helping to craft the renewal of our profession. There are some amendments that are coming forward. We also have an exciting thing happening with the veterinary technicians in our state, which are not a recognized profession, but want to be. And so we are working very hard. This is a pretty big deal to bring the veterinary technicians into the Veterinary Practice Act. And we have a lot of veterinary practices and veterinary technicians in Longmont. So they are going to be hearing about this. I have a bill that I'm working with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment to help, and this came forward from Marty Moore from Out Boulder County, to have a way for better data collection for the LGBTQ plus community, so that we can, better data drives better outcomes, as we know. And so we need better data to help with better health outcomes in this area. And so we're working closely with CDPHE to figure out how to do that. And that's a bill that's going to be coming forward. I'm also working with the Department of Agriculture with a bill that will help with resources and implementation of the very big lift, the farm workers bill that we carried last year, just to help get resources both to workers and employers on the implementation and training of heat stress, the ergonomics of hand weeding, overtime rules, and all of that is new information. We want to make it easier on them. And that's just a few. So I'll stop there and look forward to any discussion or questions.
Thank you so much, Representative McCormick. It sounds like quite a full plate already, even though we're only a couple weeks in. Representative Burnett, would you be willing to?
Oh boy, yes. And I want to say it's wonderful working with Rep. McCormick. We have such a great group down at the legislature. So I just had to say that. First of all, I represent the sort of eastern part of Longmont, but it runs sort of diagonally from the Ute Creek Golf Course area in the northeast part of Longmont down diagonally to Creekside. And it includes Prospect, but basically that it kind of does this jaggedy line through Longmont. And I have to say, I'm running for a re-election in HC 12, and it's redistricted, and I will not be in Longmont next time. It kills me, but so Rep. McCormick is, if we both get elected, then Rep. McCormick will represent all of Longmont. So But you know, my heart's with Longmont. So first of all, I do have to say that my district right now does include the Marshall Fire victims in Louisville and part of Lafayette. And so well, many people were celebrating on New Year's Eve. I was on the phone to all sorts of state officials, helping residents with the evacuation and recovery effort. And I will be continuing to do that this year. But let me talk about some of the regular work I'm doing. I sit on 3 committees: the State Affairs and Energy and Environment, and also Joint Technology Committee. And right now, in addition to all these hearings, the SMART hearings that Representative McCormick talked about, the Joint Technology Committee is kind of like the parallel committee to the Joint Budget Committee. And what we do is we look at all the state information technology projects and also all the community college and state university information technology projects, and we evaluate them from a technical standpoint. So I'm going through many days of hearings, really making sure that these projects are technically viable, that they're well planned, and also we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. And so we're making sure and making recommendations on what ranking on all these wonderful projects, rank them in terms of whether they're viable and whether we recommend that they be funded. So that's been a lot of my work. But of course, I've been working on bills, so I'll run down through those pretty quickly. My big bill is still going through a little bit of sausage making process before it's introduced. It's an ozone air quality improvement bill. And as you all know, especially here in Longmont, we've had a real problem with ozone. The Front Range is about to be downgraded for the 5th time for ozone non-attainment. And the wildfires that we've had over the last several years has only exacerbated the problem. We have an ozone problem anyway. And many of you might know that my son nearly died of asthma when he was a toddler, and I have asthma. In fact, I have to check the ozone levels before I go out and do my runs because I've had to scrap a lot of workouts. So this is really near and dear to my heart. So what this bill is focusing on improving the ozone air quality by looking at better modeling of emissions sources, air quality monitoring, permitting, reporting to the public, enforcement, all those things. I've been talking to a lot of scientists and people who really know what's going on in this area to formulate something that will make a difference. Sorry, my phone, I forgot to put my phone in the other room there, so I'll keep talking. But there's an environmental justice component to it. And like I said, improved reporting to the public. I think this is something that many people have really wanted to see, is improved reporting to the public. It also sets up the framework for other air quality kind of legislation. Representative Kennedy is running a bill on that's focusing on toxic air pollutants like benzene. And so my bill is providing a framework under which and other air quality bills can fit in there. One of the other bills I'm running, one of the big bills, is a advanced energy codes for buildings. And this has been pretty widely talked about so far. And it's, okay, so here's the deal. The state has to define minimum energy codes for communities, but each community, each city, each county then adopts those codes and enforces them. So this is not new. We did this in 2007, and again, I think it was in 2018. And it's time to update these codes. And what I really like about this is that they're really forward-looking. And we're looking at 3 different codes. The first one, which cities and counties would have to adopt by 2025, looks at the latest IECC codes from 2021 and includes that the building codes for both commercial and residential buildings must be electric vehicle ready, heat pump ready, solar ready. And these codes are going to be developed by the Colorado Energy Office. Okay, so that's by 2025. Then in 2030, there'll be model energy codes that require communities to adopt near zero carbon codes. And by that, I mean, if you have an all electric building, it's near zero in terms of carbon, except for the carbon that is produced by the utilities that's generating that electricity. So it's near zero carbon. But I look at this bill as the Colorado way. It says not banning gas at all. There are multiple paths to the near zero carbon. So if residents or businesses want to have gas in their building, they can do that. It requires that there be an accommodation for or an accounting that the carbon is accounted for in a different way. The carbon that's used to that you're burning by using gas is accounted for, say by more energy efficiency or by solar panels or some other. So now I'm getting a little wonky here, but that's the second of the codes. The third one is a voluntary code. This is for communities who really want to go beyond these other two codes and look at things like indoor air. It's a green code, indoor air quality, water conservation, all sorts of things like that. So it's a voluntary code. So that's my number two bill. And I'll quickly go through the other three. Okay, another one is grid resilience. This is requiring the Colorado Energy Office to look at grid resilience. And by that, I mean resilience and reliability. Everything from wildfires to squirrels can cause a disruption in our grid. And saying, starting from that and looking at the grid resilience of our state, and then identifying what are those critical facilities. And of course, you think of hospitals, but also grocery stores and senior centers and other things. And then what are those critical areas of the state that are more vulnerable to grid disruption, electric grid disruption. And then from there, to figure out if and how microgrids, electric microgrids, like think solar panels plus storage, how microgrids fit in and can make the grid more resilient. This is technology agnostic, developer agnostic, and it's also, so there's room for everybody. So it's basically a study bill and a roadmap, and I can get into more details, but there's a lot of excitement about this bill. Two more I'll just talk very quickly about. One of them was, I actually was working with St. Vrain Valley School District, and this is an education procurement bill that basically saves school districts money and protects student data privacy. And I'm going to leave it at that because because I know people have questions and things like that. The final bill is basically modernizing some grant and loan programs to foster community investments in energy efficiency and resilience and clean heat and just transition. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I think I've talked plenty.
Well, thank you so much, Representative Burnett. I would say that for the city council, many of their priorities are the same things that you were talking around, around energy resilience and around, equity. I saw the equity piece with the better data collection for LGBTQ better building codes, that you're speaking, I would say you're speaking very close to our heart in Longmont. I did have one quick question, Representative Burnett. One thing that I had heard around the air quality piece was, will you be focusing any on oil and gas air quality monitoring specifically? In Longmont, we certainly do a lot of air quality monitoring, and so we pay for that. And it does seem like perhaps the state is a little underfunded in their own monitoring of it. So I thought I'd at least ask the question.
Yeah. Well, okay. So my bill is focused not just, let me put it this way. It's focused on sources that contribute to our ozone problem. Okay. And it includes minor sources. So it's looking at modeling. You know, I don't know if you recall, there was a whistleblower report back in the spring that, okay, nothing fraudulent was done. I want to make sure that people understand that nothing fraudulent was done, but it looked to me, okay, I'm an engineer. I looked at that and said, it looks like we could tighten up that modeling process. So that's really where that really is what spurred me to take a deeper dive at this. Okay.
I'd love to introduce the city council or have them introduce themselves and ask any questions that they may have. So Mayor, who would you like to go first?
Well, I have a couple of questions, but I would actually like for the other councilors to weigh in first. But I do want to make I should have written a fast email. Councilwoman Hidalgo-Fahring was going to come in late. Is there anybody watching to see if she's trying to, I just want to put that in. She was leaving.
She was going to text me when she was ready, but let me just double check my email too, just to make sure.
Okay. Is there anybody on council that would like to go first on Q&A? Councilwoman Martin. You're muted, Marcia.
My space bar doesn't work unless I press it really hard. Let's see. So on your, I think it was your number 2 bill, Representative Burnett, which was about the building codes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Longmont is also working on sustainable building codes, specifically for electrification. And of course, the recommendations of the electrification committee aren't out yet, but it's looking to me like Longmont's timeline is going to be faster than the state's timeline, which is not unusual. But I wanted to make sure that the state legislation is not going to pose obstacles to municipalities that want to be ahead of the curve, and that we are going to continue to have local control about how soon, electrification readiness, all electric, et cetera, is going to happen.
I'm glad you asked that question. In fact, Louisville has already adopted the 2021 codes. So, so there's definitely a very strong interest, especially here in Boulder County, to do that. The model codes will be published, I believe, in about 6 months before that. So, but this is a stakeholder, codes are very, they're very complicated. And so I think that there'll be quite the stakeholder process with the Colorado Energy Office. And so I think that there'll be plenty of opportunity for that communication.
So when you said the codes will be published about 6 months before that, before what? I mean, before
in like mid 2024. Okay, sorry about that.
So what happens to cities that have already adopted codes, the 21 codes in 22 or 23?
Well, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that going to become an impediment when the state produces guidelines?
You know what? I'd have to check. I don't believe so. I think this will support what you're doing, but let's take that offline, because I don't want to answer, I would not want to answer the question. Let me put it that way. So let's take that offline and I will get you an answer on that.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to jump in here? Well, in that case, I'll ask my questions. First of all, Rep. McCormick, Karen, I would like to tell you that I really like the sunset review bill that you are proposing to get the professions, the veterinarian technicians into your act. I think that they absolutely need to be part of this sunset, this act that is going to sunset, the Veterinary Practice Act. So kudos for doing that.
Yeah, well, I can add to that because what happened is the Colorado Association of Certified Veterinary Technicians is a organized group here in our state, and there are certified veterinary technicians that have to achieve a level of schooling and pass a national exam that do work in our state. And then there are, of course, folks that have gained a tremendous amount of knowledge and skill in on-the-job training over the years. So what has happened is the veterinary technicians that are certified went to the Department of Regulatory Agencies and said, we want a sunrise review. And so I just learned what sunset and sunrise were. They wanted to have their potential profession looked at to see if they could be eligible to become a regulated profession. So there was a whole year-long study of the veterinary technicians with their input, and they produced a sunrise report in October, along with the sunset report from the veterinary community. And because we all get along so well, we have been working both with the veterinary technician community and the veterinarian community, and we're attempting to take the sunrise report and make it into an amendment to amend into the sunset report, the sunset draft bill for the Veterinary Practice Act. So my analogy is we're making a really wonderful sandwich, and there are all these different parts to the sandwich that are critical to elevate the profession and guide the profession for the next 10 years, and also give folks working as veterinary technicians that may not be certified a pathway to become certified. But also, we're not leaving anyone out of the profession if they don't want to become certified. They've been working and are extremely qualified and skilled, and they've been in that field for 20 years. They do not have to become certified. They can continue to work. They just, at some point in time, and that's in the bill, they won't be able to call themselves a veterinary technician. They may have to call themselves a veterinary assistant or something else, because the veterinary technicians want title protection once they get there. But we can't afford to force anybody out of this profession. We are at an extreme shortage across our state and across the nation. And so anything that we can do to elevate and promote all levels of the profession is what we're trying to do. So we'll have the report from Dora next Monday in the Agriculture, Livestock and Water Committee, which I'm the chair of. And that'll be the kind of the first public step. So thank you, Mayor Peck, because as you can tell, I'm really excited about it. I'm so super proud of my profession, and it's just a thrill to be there and such an honor to be able to, it's just kind of luck that it all happened right now.
Yeah, and your passion shows. We're really fortunate to have somebody in that area of expertise, because they have to be represented. And I just thank you for your service. This is great.
It's a quiet profession too. There's not that many of us, but we are critical. We're critical to our $40 billion ag animal industry here in our state. And so it's really important that we get this right, because once we do it, it's set for 10 years. It's kind of like the census. You don't get another go at it for 10 years.
Well, thank you very much. So, and then going to Representative Burnett, I'm sorry, got that totally screwed up. Sorry, Tracy. On your ozone air quality bill, I think this is a great bill. I'm really excited about it, but my concern is who is the oversight for this? If it passes, who would be the oversight to make sure that it's being followed? Because I'm a little concerned that SB 181, it doesn't have much oversight. And annually, this is only 1 year into that bill. And we really don't know where to go with it as far as you're not following it. So for me, it is after it passes, who do we contact? Who do we work with if it isn't met, the code or the goal or the bill isn't met?
I am so glad you asked that question. And like I said, the bill is still being drafted, but I am talking to people who have been on the frustration side of that issue. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I'm talking to, scientists and people, community members and people who are really concerned about that. So
Yeah.
stay tuned.
And I agree with you that it is not just oil and gas, even though that's a huge component. And I want to thank you for the bill you ran last year about the methane that's being produced from cement and hitting all sources. I think it's great. The other thing, I love the advanced energy codes for buildings. And the opportunity for us to, with your bills, for us to move further on our goals of 100% renewable or just cleaning up our environment and giving developers, builders, and the city the opportunity to help all of us move forward. So,
Yeah, I look at buildings, that's the hardest nut to crack.
it is.
In terms of, and it'll take the longest time to decarbonize. That's why, as a new representative, that's why I wanted to focus on buildings. And I think that it's also really important if we want to wean ourselves of fossil fuels, that means that we have to start in our homes, in our businesses, with how we heat our food, how we heat our buildings, how we heat our water. And so, and along the line, I just have to say, it's so important that we make sure that everybody is brought along on that path to sustainable infrastructure of the future. And so every single bill that I look at in this area, I have an equity lens, looking at disproportionately impacted communities and also people who are lower on the income scale. That is core to my being.
Thank you. That's exactly where I think we need to start too, with the lower 20% and build up, because the higher economic scale can usually afford to do things for their homes, and we cannot leave, everybody has to be included. Well, that's it, I think. If I think of another comment, I'll definitely speak up.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. I probably should have switched these around and had council members introduce themselves as well before this, but I was so excited to get right into the meat of the bills. So I'm wondering if we could have our council members just give a wave and introduce themselves. And looking on my screen, I know that Marcia was able to wave and say hello, and of course you. So I'm wondering if Councilmember Yarbrough could introduce yourself to our representatives.
Hello, thank you for meeting with us this evening, and I'm Shiquita Yarbrough, so thanks again. Good to see you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Hello, representatives. It's good to see you again, as always. I know we've seen each other a few times and spoken a few times. And I will have a question, but I'll let the other council members, or at least remaining council member, introduce themselves. Thank you.
That would be me, I suppose.
Yep, you got it. Councilmember Waters.
Tracy and Karen, good to see you both. I won't have questions. I'll just say thank you for your service and say, go for it. Good luck in this next election cycle. I don't think you're going to need good luck. I know you're both well prepared and you've done a great job.
Thank you, Councilmember Waters. I would love for Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez to go ahead and ask his question. Mayor Peck, I just checked everything and I haven't heard anything yet from Councilmember Hidalgo-Fahring. So we'll keep watching for her though.
Thank you.
Okay, I was just wondering, thank you very much for giving us a rundown on the bills that you both will be running, or at least plan on running in this coming session. I know how they have to go through, committee and all that, and looking forward to seeing how that all goes. What I am curious about is, I think we're all very well aware of the problems that many of the communities on the Front Range face as far as our unhoused populations are concerned. And so I was just wondering if you know of any particular legislature, because, I tend to be of the feeling that we're going to need a more regional approach, even if not a statewide approach, knowing that likely the federal government's not going to be able to come together and do anything about it. So I was just wondering if there's anything you've heard from colleagues about, maybe some strategies that they look at running bills on.
Council Republican, no. Sandy, take over this meeting.
You can call me anything.
Representative McCormick.
Good thing I know Karen, but
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that actually tomorrow we plan to hear from the very critical task forces that were working this summer. One was the housing task force. That's really hard to say. Task force. The behavioral health task force. The workforce development task force. I don't know why I'm having trouble. And economic recovery. So tomorrow we get to finally hear it. I was not privileged to be on any of those task forces. But what we get to hear tomorrow is kind of what is coming out of those task forces. What are their key items that they have distilled down to work into potential bills, pieces of legislation to move forward. So maybe we can catch up with you once we kind of get the cliff notes on that. I do know that Representative Basenecker and Representative Hooten are working on, especially Representative Hooten has been instrumental in mobile home park residents' rights and protections. And Representative Basenecker is bringing forth a bill this year that I don't know the details about, but again, it's to help with those in mobile home parks, potentially with some of the protections that they have desperately needed. So love to get back to you on what we learned. Tracy, if you know of anything in particular, please share.
I think you did a great job. I'd just like to say that the ARPA money that we got as a state last year, we used some of it to stabilize our budget. We spent some of it for immediate impact, but we held back a lot for those 4 important areas: affordable housing, behavioral health, workforce development, and economic development. So there's been many members that have been working very hard on it. So I just want to, I'm really looking forward to that, because I think there's such a serious need in all those areas, especially affordable housing and behavioral health.
Thank you so much for that. Mayor Peck, Councilmember Hidalgo-Fahring just joined us. So Councilmember Hidalgo-Fahring, if you'd like to introduce yourself, feel free to jump on and say hello.
Hi, good evening. I'm Councilmember Susie Hidalgo-Fahring. I was at the library board meeting, so I had to split my time here, but thanks for letting me in.
And Councilmember Hidalgo-Fahring, I know you're just jumping in. We've just been talking about energy and building codes and sunset review processes, some of the ARPA funding and the priorities for the state. So if you have any questions, feel free to just jump on in and ask anything you would like at this point. All right. Mayor Peck, if there aren't any other questions, I do have a couple things that have come up that are of concern for city staff that we are hearing might be coming along. And so we just wanted to mention a couple of things, if that's all right with you.
Can I just add on what I was going to ask Representative Burnett, and I forgot, in your building code bill, are you going to include schools in that, or school districts, because they have such huge buildings, and the opportunity to for electrification of school buildings would be huge.
Any residential or commercial building that requires a building permit. So we're talking new buildings as well as major renovations that require a building permit would be included in this.
Thank you. That's all I had, Sandy.
Great, thanks. So a couple of things that city staff are just concerned around. Part of this that I kind of mentioned during the air quality discussion was around COGCC and air quality monitoring for older wells. Didn't know if there was going to be any legislation coming up around, ones that are not subject to new regulations. And so just curious if there was anything that you're hearing on that front. That's the first one.
Well, as you know, this is a little bit of a sausage making process right now, but the Governor Polis has put in his budget request requesting significant investments in air quality in several different buckets. One of them is in improving the air monitoring with aerial monitoring, with mobile units, and also improving I think there's 42 stationary monitors around the state. So that's one request. Another one is significantly increasing the number of employees at the health department that will be looking at modeling and things like that. And there's also I can't remember how many employees, but I know that the air quality budget request is about $7 million. And then there's another almost $13 million budget request. I actually just reviewed it literally just the other day. It's to upgrade the information technology systems that is used for permitting, for reporting, for enforcement, all those kind of things that we all care about. It's an almost $13 million investment in information technology. Right now, a lot of that permitting process is manual, manual. So actually this, I'm delighted that the governor is looking at modernizing that. And this will not be shared only with the health department, but across departments like the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission and the Colorado Energy Office. Are actually even talking about things like having a place for all the, for collecting all the data on greenhouse gas emissions. So lots of stuff going on.
Thank you.
I was just going to add to that, and I know Rep. Burnett kind of knows about this as well, but there were some efforts to bring forth a bill to address the plugging of old and abandoned wells, and to do so with potentially better advanced materials and technologies. And so I had a couple of meetings with COGCC about this idea of using biochar and certain cement mixes to use as a material for the plugging of wells. There is research across the world, and it's being started in Tennessee as well, that this mixture could potentially be more durable, last much, much longer, and be more absorptive, not only within the well, but also in the ground around the well for absorbing these toxic materials. At this point in time, so there's not a bill coming this year. At this point in time, they are looking into the feasibility of doing a pilot study and trying to determine what the parameters of that study might be, what would be the best way to even measure outcomes. And so kind of nebulous at this point, but I was pretty excited when I heard about the whole idea of using biochar in this way. And we'll be following up with them in late spring as they come forward with what they've learned at that point.
That's great. It's wonderful to hear some of the new technology and the new investments that are being proposed, because we definitely think they're needed. Yeah. One other one that came from our HR department was the Equal Pay Act. So what we've noticed is that since the Equal Pay Act has gone into play, the rules that were promulgated by the Department of Labor may not be consistent necessarily with what the law was aimed towards. And so didn't know if you'd heard anybody potentially bringing in some cleanup legislation around that act.
I'm not aware of anything, but the first bills just were read over just in the last couple days. So I guess we'll keep our eyes out for that.
Yeah, and I have not either, but Sandy, I would love to know more specifics about where the mismatch is, or where what exactly might need to be cleaned up with CDLE with their rulemaking. So if you've seen that, please shoot us an email and let us know what you're looking at and where the discrepancies may be, so that we can be following that or look into that.
That would be great. I'd be happy to send you some follow-up information.
And I'd just like to point out too, as you see bills being read over, please reach out to us if you see concerns. The way things work, bill is read over, then it's gone into committee. If we are not on that committee, we do not see it until it gets on the floor. And by then it's really far along in the process. So let us know as soon as possible if you see a problem with the bill, because we really, because then we can talk to the bill sponsors directly when there's a lot more time to fix anything.
Thank you so much for that invitation. The way that I know every municipality is a little different. The way that we do it in Longmont is that I read the bills for municipal significance and then send that out to our staff to either determine whether I'm right or maybe not right. Then we bring the bills that we think are either significantly good or significantly not good for Longmont. We bring those to the city council and they vote on those for an official position. We try to do that in like a 1 week turnaround now. We've made some changes thanks to Councilmember Martin, so that we're trying to do that in the same week, so that as they're hitting committee, we're able to analyze and take a look at it. So we have kind of a rolling process with city council. So you'll hear from me an email just like you did last year when you see those bills coming through. And we do try to take that job very seriously. So we're not going to comment on every single thing, but the things that are significant to us, you will absolutely hear from us just as soon as I can get it out. Yeah, and in fact, one of those bills that we're hearing about is a collective bargaining bill for municipal employees. Now, I haven't seen it drop yet, but in case you did not know, the city of Longmont, as part of our charter, has an amendment for collective bargaining for public safety staff. And so it's our understanding that this bill may try to usurp all of those agreements that are currently in place. And that would be really harmful for Longmont, and obviously take away years and years of work that we've been working with our public safety unions on. And so just toss that out there, that I haven't seen the final bill draft, but if it is as overtaking as it sounds, then that's something that our voters voted on our charter that allows our collective bargaining the way that it's set up. And so we certainly wouldn't want to invalidate their votes with something that's coming down from the state. So
that's good to know. And I know they're still working on that because of feedback just like that. So it is good to know. And I do want you to know how much I appreciate your emails when they come in and you have your bullet points of the particular bills. So thank you so much. And thank you to council for your work when you look at these bills and study them in such short measure and get your word back to us. It's very, very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hidalgo-Fahring, did you want to add something?
Yeah, and actually that was one of the ones when Representative Burnett had mentioned something about, expressing concerns or input on bills. I was going to bring that up. So for us so my understanding was that it essentially codifies the right for public sector employees to unionize. Is that accurate? Is that, what is your understanding of the bill? One thing I did learn, though, is that Senator Fenberg was wanting to remove the K-12 employees from the bill. For us, that would not be a good in the public education realm. So I know that some public sector groups are looking at this bill favorably, while, as I'm hearing, public safety is not necessarily looking at this as a favorable move. So, I'd like to get some more background in that, at a later date. But as far as, pulling public educators out of that, what was the rationale? Do you know?
My understanding is at the point a month ago anyway, so who knows where it's at now,
Yeah.
is that if you were already involved in any group that has a union, that it would not affect what you presently have in place. And it also would not mandate unions to form. What it would do is allow for the pathway for a group of public sector workers that wanted to be able to move towards that pathway where they could be recognized. But it would not automatically create a whole bunch of unions in that respect. And it was not supposed to interfere with existing unions and their ability to exist as they are. So again, that was my overview.
So then in that respect, it would not negatively or have any impact at all to what we're doing with our public safety.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't. So, and then as far as the public educators, though, I know that there are several districts in the state who meet and confer. So they do not have enough, I think the 50%. So they do not have that 50% threshold to even have a contract.
Right.
So in doing so, by removing that subgroup of people from the bill, it will have a detrimental impact on people who just don't have that ability to be able to collectively bargain for their contracts. So, I think, that's something that kind of needs to be mentioned as well. So.
And Councilmember Hidalgo-Fahring, as soon as I see that bill, we'll be reviewing it for all of those aspects and bringing it to you, because I think it is still shifting and changing.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Certainly concern is the right for public employees to be able to strike, which is not something that we currently allow with our public safety contracts because it's public safety. We have lots of employees that are in that boat. And it was my understanding this last time that it actually did override existing contracts. So I'll look for that specifically, because you just never know, right? Till you see the bill, you don't know. So as soon as it drops,
and I know from our union, in order to, if we did strike, it'd have to be the vote of the members. So if the members shot it down, we would not move forward with that. So there are, several processes, and that's kind of the last resort. We never want to go straight for burning that bridge. And then another one that I wanted to ask about, and I don't know if this was mentioned earlier, my apologies for coming in at late. Are there any bills moving forward as far as strengthening tenant rights or anything? And I don't want to say, rent control, but rent control. Are there any bills or any discussion on looking at that component?
Yeah, the only one I know about is the mobile home park. And I don't have the specifics, but I believe there is at least one, maybe two mobile home protection rights type bills. So I just know that Representative Basenecker and Representative Hooten, so you could be watching for those. So other than in that space, I don't know, but we might learn tomorrow. So when we hear from the task force.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Peck, I would just ask and see if there's any other council members that have questions or anything else that we want to share before we wrap up.
Yep. Do I have anybody out there? Anybody out there in Zoom land that wants to ask a question? Harold, do you want to make any comments or ask any questions?
No, I think Sandy covered it. And on the Equal Pay Act, we will get that information in just to give you a sense of what it does. It actually, one of the things it does is it creates a position. If you're reorganizing it, it considers it an opening. So even though you have an incumbent in the position, you have to post it, and there's a chance that actually the incumbent could not get the position. And so it's nuances like that that really hamper us operationally in terms of restructuring and reorganizing within the organization, but we'll get you all the details.
Okay, thank you. I do have one, as we continue these conversations, things just keep coming into my brain as to what I want to ask. So I do have one. When we talk about housing, there are all kinds of bills and grants for affordable housing, which I think is great. And Longmont sure takes advantage of those grants and those opportunities. But is there anyone in the legislative bodies that are thinking about attainable housing? Are there any grants coming down? Are there, rather than just codes, to help us meet that gap in our housing? Do you know if anybody's addressing that? And if you know of any grants that developers can apply for, or how we can move this forward?
I'm not aware of anything along that line, but maybe we'll learn more tomorrow.
Okay, that would be great if you could update us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do know that folks are certainly using the same terminology. It's not just always about affordable, it is about attainable. So I know at least the focus has shifted or been more inclusive of all of those differences depending on the county that you are in or the city that you're in, because it does make a big difference if it's affordable and attainable.
So if you hear of anybody in the legislature that is addressing this issue, I wouldn't mind, and I'm sure some other people on council or in the city wouldn't mind having a conversation with them to see if we can move something forward to help all of us out. So thank you. And
Thanks for bringing that up. It is an issue, and I'm really glad you brought that up.
Good. So I think we've covered everything, Sandy. Do you think so?
I think so too. I just wanted to thank Representative Burnett and Representative McCormick for being here this evening remotely with us. We really appreciate the partnership every year. They do a great job of getting back to me about questions when I raise concerns, and I would love to offer our services as staff expertise again this year. So if you have questions as you look through different bills, we are here to support you in that endeavor as well. So Mayor Peck, I do think we need to have a public invited to be heard.
That's right. So at this, okay, I'll take it over at this point because
thank you.
Do this one. Dallas, would you mind posting the call-in information? And we'll take a 5-minute break while people call in. This will be the only time that we'll have public invited to be heard tonight. So the number is 1-888-788-0099. Please mute your computer or turn off your mute so that we won't get static. Your meeting ID code is 828-7983-9401. Press the pound sign on your phone. Thank you, and we'll be back shortly.
Mayor Peck and Council, we are about 10 seconds out from the 5-minute mark. We do have a caller.
Thank you, Dallas. Let's just give him about 2 more minutes or another minute. Let's make it another minute, make sure everybody gets in.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
I'll let you know. Yes. Okay, we are approaching the 6-minute mark. I'm still not seeing any other callers, but we do have the one.
So let's go ahead and lock that and let that caller in.
Absolutely. Just one moment. Okay, caller with the last 3 digits, 879. Caller with the last 3 digits of their phone number, 879. Would you unmute yourself? Hello.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
We can see and hear you.
Hello, please state your name and address, and then you can ask your question or comment.
Christina Williams, 117 Quail Road.
Thank you, Christina. Go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you for your service for all of you. I had a few questions and a few points I'd like to make about the smart meter rollout. So a perfectly possible scenario, say in your house, you're running the dryer, the refrigerator, the outdoor lighting, hot water heater, washing machine is on, maybe 6 bulbs. And if you do, maybe your husband's in the garage with an air compressor and his tools. According to, I looked all this up online as to what all of these units pull as far as amperage and watts go. You could very easily be pulling about 26,000 watts, according to the specification sheet for the Focus Axe smart meter. The service disconnect says 200 amps, and the nominal voltage in the United States is about 110 volts. So if you calculate the power on that, then that's 2,200 watts. So it's underrated. I may have the wrong, I'm hoping I have the wrong specifications, and I'm wondering if you could direct me as to where I could find those specifications. Because I certainly hope these are not all underrated.
Christina.
I just showed how easy it is to pull, as much as 26,000 watts. And it sounds like it would be very easy to overload one of these smart meters.
Christina.
What happens when the power goes out?
Christina.
Uh-huh.
I would like to.
I know that I only have 3 minutes, so that's why.
No, what I am going to tell you is this is a special session with our 2 representatives online. This is a great question for our regular meeting tomorrow night during public invited to be heard. So if you have a question or a comment to our 2 representatives, that would be acceptable. Do you have any comments for our reps or a question?
Yeah, I guess I have both. Please don't do the smart meter rollout. I've done some research on this, and I think they're unsafe. And not only are they unsafe, but I think they should be the personal decision of everyone who gets one. If you want one, then you could buy one. And if you don't want one, then you shouldn't be forced to get one.
Thank you.
And my questions are, where can I find the schematics for these smart meters that you guys have decided to use?
If you will leave your email address, we can have somebody contact you.
That'd be great.
Okay, thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you.
So since that is our last caller, I think that we have come to the end of our meeting. And I want to thank all of you for showing up, especially staff, because this is your second second meeting in a row this week that is running late. So I thank you for your time and for hanging in there with us. And thanks to our two representatives. We learned a lot, and I totally support all of the work that you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you all.